I believe in one less God than you. The first time I turned up to that breakfast, I struggled. I got heaps. Where do we start? So I was born with a hole in the heart. I've seen a 99-year-old competing.
Okay. Welcome to another exciting episode of the M26 Fit podcast. I'm your host, Magnus, and today I'm sitting down with good friend Don Zenker. Now, mate, you're an atheist. I'm a man of faith. You're a masters athlete, and I'm an ice hockey player. You've done an MBA, and I'm a helicopter pilot. You prefer running, and I'd rather lift weights. We're two men with different beliefs, but shared values. And together, I'm looking forward to exploring sustainable performance, purpose, discipline, identity, and longevity together this morning. Welcome.
Mate, I just want to start by clarifying one thing. I believe in one less God than you. So I don't know if atheist. I hate the word atheist. It's sort of makes you seem like you don't believe in anything. I think I believe in too many things. That's the problem, including the possibility of God. That's what science sort of teaches you. It teaches you to actually be open-minded. So I'd say open-minded and someone who believes in one less God than you. So,
mate, I like that. So what do you think actually drives human performance? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of things, right? So I think your upbringing has a lot to do with it. You've got to start early. And this is one of the biggest things that, when I talk to parents and friends, everyone, I said, you've got to get your kids moving. You've got to get them used to the ability to move and be healthy. And that's, especially in the current society, that's a problem, right? Yeah. So I think that's one of the biggest pieces.
Let's just rewind the clock back a bit because you're born in Sri Lanka, I'm born in Sweden. How do you think because I remember you telling me a story that you were, as a kid growing up, you'd be playing cricket on the beach and you'd be running around. Do you think that impacted, is that part of that belief system you think you're talking about?
Yeah, I think so, because it's one of those things, right? Like we never thought of TV as a reliance for boredom. We used it as for something for entertainment and when we wanted to escape. But it was hardly the norm. I would wake up first thing in the morning. I would go for training. I was very motivated. I wanted to be an Olympian, and that's what drove me. I would go train in the morning. That this is early. Sometimes we start at like 4:30 in the morning. Can't even imagine doing that now. And then you would go to school. You finish school. Then I would go train again. And then I would spend time on the beach, and somehow in between that, I don't know how I found time to study as well. I've been pretty studious. Fortunately, the genes worked in my favor.
That sounds to me like the other thing, discipline, because you can't do that. You can't get up at 4:30 in the morning if you don't have discipline, and then you go into school, and obviously then you're thinking about higher education. So you consider yourself quite disciplined, and is that one of the keys to high performance?
Yeah, I think you have to be. You have to be motivated. You have to be disciplined. You'd know that more than anyone else, mate. Like with, your history is the same as well. Well, I want to know your opinion as well. What do you think is the main thing that works?
I personally believe, I think that it's got to be part of who you are. And there's some people I think that are not necessarily born, because I think discipline is something that you definitely build, but it's certainly got to start internally, and mine's all been driven by goals. So it's something that I set myself that I wanted to achieve, and then I've got a persistence, I think, and a determination to wanting to achieve that. And if that means, like you pointed out, getting up at 4:30 in the morning to do a training session, well, that's what you did.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of variables. I always tried, when we're having these discussions, I try not to be like my dad, where he said, in our days, it's easy to say that, but we didn't have the internet when we were growing up. We didn't have the challenges of the future or the current society that sort of kids are facing. So you have to be realistic to a sense. So there's a lot of things that I think the pressures that you and I didn't have when we were growing up. Peer pressure was something that sort of worked for us half of the day, whereas now it's 24/7, thanks to the thing called, social media and digital technologies. We didn't have artificial intelligence, so we didn't have all of these things that are 24/7 sort of in our face. So surrounding yourself with the right people, all of these things mattered, but it matters more, I think, now. Just having the right people around you, the right influences. The parental guidance becomes even more and more prevalent these days because, the parents have to take some responsibility in modern society on how people or their kids are exposed to some of these things. So it has to start early.
But you're right. When I was a child growing up, mum stayed at home and took care of us and took us to school and whatnot. And obviously with today's society, with the cost of living pressures, now most parents are working. So I think that influence from the parents has become also more challenging. And like you pointed out, it's distraction. Because I think me, again, as growing up as a kid, that you go to school, but then after that you went to training. You didn't have a phone that was playing with, that was pinging every 5 minutes and getting you distracted from what you'd set out to achieve.
Yeah, I don't think it's a reality anymore. So I'm the other side of that, right? Like growing up in Sri Lanka, you would think it's exactly the same. But my mom was very progressive. She was a teacher. That's where my influence came from, the respect for academics, teachers. She was a very smart lady. She still is. Unfortunately, she's going through dementia at the moment. So it's really hard to see the cognitive decline. But for me, she was she was working full-time, she was a teacher, but she always found enough time to pay attention to the kids. It's one of those things where in a society that we are living in now, you don't have a choice. In most circumstances, both parents have to work. So it's a matter of finding time, how you spend that time you spend with your kids. That's what I'm finding. The type of time you spend with kids is very different, and it needs to be very different. And, I've got two daughters that are 19 and 22. So I've made the mistakes myself. I'm not perfect in any sense. If anything, I've made all of the mistakes, and that's what sort of taught me some of these things.
The one thing I'll add to that, though, that you cannot, I think, is supremely important, and that is you can't underestimate the power of the example that you set. So my son, he's grown up, dad's been out there, he's been exercising day in, day out, and that matters. And I think that when I look at you and I look at your upbringing, and like you said, very big in the academic side of things, but then you've been that athlete almost your entire life, and now 49 years of age, and are you still the fastest 400-metre hurdler in the country at 49?
No, unfortunately I'm not. I got beaten. I had a very bad year last year. So, 49, the way Masters track and field works is it's in blocks of 5. So the best way to explain it is when you're young, you have age groups based on your ability as you grow older, and then there's an open category. And then once you start getting old again, you go backwards. It's like in blocks of 5. So 30 to 35, 35 to 40. So I'm in the 45 to 50 category at the moment. So I'm in that end of that 49, whereas the 45-year-olds are the young ones are coming in. Last year was bad. I had a couple of injuries the year before. So I got beaten both in the 400 hurdles and the 400. Unfortunately, I've had a huge fall in the 200 on day one. That didn't help. Saying that, I was against the world champion in the 400-meter hurdles. So that was always going to be a challenge, even without an injury. So, and he's in form. Unfortunately, I am not. So hopefully I turn 50 next March. I get to start again. I'll be running with the older people. I'll be the youngster in the age group.
That's fantastic. So when I look back and try and understand the psychology behind Masters athletes, as somebody that's in their 40s and they're still wanting to compete, what do you say about that?
Yeah, I think it's you have to have something that's inside you that wants to keep going.
Is it a competitive thing as well? Do you think you're very competitive?
Yeah, but that's me. Not everyone's in it for the competition, and I think that's a very unhealthy motivation. The competition sometimes can be very unhealthy. It puts a unnecessary pressure in you, and that's something that I'm trying to sort of learn not to do. Because if you look at some of the most successful masters athletes, and there are some amazing masters athletes, the most successful ones are that are doing it for the enjoyment. They just want to go and have a good crack and be healthy. And I think finding that balance, but it's the same for anything else. If you just go back to your first question, it's that self-motivation. It has to be there. Like that's part of it. You have to have the upbringing, but you got to always have that self-motivation, and that builds discipline. It sort of, the discipline comes around that. But if you don't want to help yourself, no one else can. And that's something that I've always believed in.
Yeah. Is there much of a connection, would you say, within that fraternity? I know there's a lot of run clubs around in Brisbane, and it's very much people go along to those run clubs, not necessarily to run, but it's very, very much a connection piece. Is that same with the Masters Athletics, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a thing. That's something that sports bring out, community. So when we talk about, things that as you age, the cognitive decline, the psychological sort of effects that you have with loneliness, and even the physical decline that you have, I think the biggest antidote is community. And that's what sports does. If you look at even little athletics, if you look at kids, right, what little athletics does is creates these people that have a common belief in one thing. And, you find kids that just go because their best friends are going. That doesn't change when you get older. It's the same thing, right? You want to hang around people that are like-minded. So if you can create communities that are active, that are, that wants to be motivated to stay healthy, it's infectious. So that's the biggest thing as well. Then there's the side effects of when you have that communal sort of engagement, you're always cognitively keeping active as well. So there's a lot of side benefits to sports. I'm just a huge believer of sports and education.
I completely agree. Now, playing team sport, I've found that the conversations, the banter in the locker room is incredible. It's one of the things that I enjoy most about still playing team sport. And I also think as far as kids are concerned, that's very healthy, because as you move into a working life, you're going to end up in work teams and just understanding the fundamentals with the team. But with Masters Athletics, like when you're running in that 400-metre race, it's just you.
Yeah.
So, but is there much still in that community side of things within that whole athletics that you're getting that sense of community?
Yeah, so individual sports are always tough. They're very selfish sports. And unfortunately, as an open athlete or a young competitive athlete, you're taught to be selfish because you're in it and you're by yourself. You're doing this for yourself, and you have to be selfish because everyone else is your competitor and you don't have too many people. But then there are relays which brings people together. So there's things that are in there, but we are always in a team, right? So and this is where the competitive side becomes beneficial. And that's why I always promote saying you got to have a goal in life that you want to achieve. It doesn't matter whether you're 10 or 30 or 50 years of age, and having that goal. And I think this is one of the things that you and I disagree on, whereas healthy competition is good and keeps you motivated and gives you a much longer opportunity to keep competing. For me, I'm one of the few people in my friend group that wants to turn 50, right? And I'm looking forward to it. It seems like I'm just wishing my life away, but turning 50 means my hurdle height drops for the first time, right? I get to do my favorite sport running growing up was 110-meter hurdles. It's way too high for me to do it now. So that drops. So I'm going to get to do 100-meter hurdles again. So it resets the time for me as well. For me, that's something that I can look forward to. But if the competition wasn't there, if I couldn't win, if I couldn't compete with other people, my competitors are for an individual sports, your competitors are your teammates. So it's a little bit different. So I look forward to actually going to a state championships or a world championships where you can actually engage with your competitors.
Let's talk about longevity, because I was just listening to what you were saying then. So you're going into the over 50s category, and I know that it goes up, and I think you were telling me a story once that there's somebody over the age of 90 that's still competing. So within your chosen sport, athletics, what sort of age can you still competitively be involved?
There's no limit for track and field, right? As long as you can walk, you can compete. And that's the thing. If you're 99 years of age and you can run around a circle, that's a huge milestone for anyone. And it seems easy when you're young and your body's moving, you have that agility. But as you get older, you'll start seeing certain things declining. And I think, and again, this is one of the things that you and I disagree on. I think running is necessary. I think we were evolutionary built to run, and if you look at millions of years of how we've evolved, and there's heaps of research around this, we are built to run, and as long as you keep running, your body will allow you to keep running. It's really hard to sort of get your head around it, but
there's got to be a balance.
The answer is 90. I've seen a 99-year-old competing.
Okay. Because we disagree on that. Yes, I also have found as I've gotten older, and I've never really been a runner, a bit of a cyclist, played around a little bit with triathlon, tried to swim, I can't swim. But where I found my solitude, it's in just going to the gym and lifting weights. And the more research that I've done on it, and in particular, I read a really, really good book recently called Outlive by Peter Attia. He's one of the leading experts on longevity. And what he talks about is what's unrefuted in the world. The number one thing to live a longer, healthier life in a health span, also a lifespan, is exercise. And he puts that down to 3 different types of exercise. You need to be doing cardiovascular exercise, VO2 max, and then also focusing on strength, because over the age of 40, you're losing muscle mass every single year, and it's more difficult, say, increase in protein. And then the last piece is agility. So I think in having that overall focus, that's what he believes is the most effective. And then the second point is nutrition, as far as this living a longer life is concerned. The third one is sleep, something very, very, I think, underrated by a lot of people. And you and I were just having this conversation earlier off camera that, like, I haven't slept very well over the last couple of nights, just through a few pressures that I'm going through at the moment. And as a consequence of that, I had a big training session planned tonight that I'm not going to do that training session. So just listening to your body a little bit and trying to rest. And just to finish off those 5 items for longevity, then the fourth one is emotional connection and relationships. And I think you touched on that earlier as far as the community is concerned. And then the fifth one is supplements.
Yeah.
So, and I think we'll touch on that a little bit longer, but what's your view around that as far as, because I know as part of your training, you're running around the track in a circle, but you also do strength training, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And I've got to give credit. Peter Attia is amazing, and he's done some. He's a great communicator as well, so he's really good at communicating this. I don't want to go on a tangent, but one of the biggest issues right now when we're talking about these things is the influence of influencers. You got people like Peter Attia that are cutting through some of the bullshit that's being preached, and I think that's where one of the biggest issues is when you're trying to figure out what the right thing to do, especially when you're getting older, and everything you talked about, we all know they are well researched. Like, you need sleep, you need to be mentally healthy, you need to. So you grow slower. It's one way to put it. When you have all the fundamentals in place, eat healthy, sleep, and.
So just on the nutrition, what's your typical diet look like, and taking into consideration that you do a fair bit of training?
Yeah, this is a tough one because I hate talking about nutrition. First of all, disclaimer: I'm not a nutrition, neither are you, so we are not qualified to talk about nutrition, and I don't think anyone should.
I'm more looking at your lived experience, what that told you.
Agree, but I do want to say, like, if you do, and this is one of the biggest areas of fake news, if you want to put it, because there's so much opportunity for people to make money, and then there's so many different causation versus correlation research pieces that are coming out where people are just trying to push things, and I don't want me to be one of them. You listen to go and engage with a nutritionist or a dietitian if you really want specific information for your nutritional health. And in Australia, that's someone who's been accredited by the dietitians or the nutritionist bodies, not someone who's gone and got a 1 year certificate saying that they're a nutritionist. You've got to have the accredited practitioners that can help you, give you the right advice. For me, I'm very analytical when it comes to what I put in my body. I'm very skeptical with a lot of things, so I test and measure things on how it affects me personally before I do it. I'm a huge believer, and this is my opinion, huge believer that what works for you is not necessarily going to work for me, because my microbiome and all of the research, most of the research you read would tell you your microbiome is designed specifically for you, and it's your thumbprint. And what you put in your body is going to be reacted on based on so many different variables that is unique to you. So
an example of that just came to me. So I take magnesium every night before I go to bed.
Yeah.
And tell us a story that you started trying that and what happened.
Yeah, so I've always wanted to try magnesium. I've been wanting to try magnesium for a while. I don't just put supplements into my diet if I don't have to, because our bodies are amazing machines. They're designed to be optimal as long as you look after them. So there's enough of these supplements that are naturally created in your body. So I've done a whole bunch of research on what type of magnesium. I'm turning 50, so I'm thinking, okay, well, I may need some help with my cognitive ability and recovery, and they're two of the biggest things that I'm worried about as I get older. So one of the things that I found, and I spoke to a dietitian about this as well, magnesium glycinate, which is supposed to help promote recovery and relax and help you sleep. So that was the first thing that I introduced to my diet. I take Manuka honey before I go to sleep, and I take a couple of other things that sort of help me relax. I added glycinate, 2 tablets of glycinate to the diet, and I thought, okay, well, this is going to be the best night's sleep, and went to bed. I've had a pretty busy day as well, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to try it that day, thinking, okay, well, this is going to help me shut my mind. Went to bed. I'm staying awake there for about an hour. It's like I normally go to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock if I'm pushing it. 11 o'clock, I'm wide awake. And then I started doing business plans in my head, and I'm, writing the next episode of the Mastering podcast, what we're going to do. And it's 2 o'clock, I'm still awake. My mind's like racing. And I fell asleep at about 3 o'clock, woke up the next day, I'm exhausted. I can't operate without sleep. It's one of the biggest things, biggest priorities. Said, all right, I'm going to get through the day. I had a really bad, mentally stimulating day the day before that. I didn't even think about the magnesium glycinate. Next night, again, popped the 2 tablets, went to sleep. So, my background's in science. Sleeping halfway through the night, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I tried dissecting the Dirac equation. If you haven't never seen it, just have a look at it. It's just a mammoth of mathematical equation. I was like, what's going on? Again, probably 3, I don't know, when I fell asleep, stayed up. It took me 3 nights before it clicked to me, maybe I need to have a look at what I've changed. So did a bit of research, looking into it. Then I find out that 1% of the world's population has the opposite effect when you take magnesium glycinate. So that's me. So it stimulates you and keeps you awake, and it made a lot of sense. It's like, okay, what do I do now? So next night, I didn't take the 2 tablets. It was that instantaneous. My body reacted straight away. I fell asleep, 9:30, bang, I was gone. There's that much of a difference. Guess what I took just before we sat down for this chat?
So that's like a pre-workout for you, magnesium.
Yeah, I've taken magnesium glycinate. So I've introduced magnesium glycinate 2 hours after I've taken my morning coffee. So that's a perfect example of what works for you works totally different to me. And it's the same, I think, with every supplement. If you look at my day, I'll wake up in the morning, have my breakfast. But with my breakfast, I'll have a probiotic, right? A lot of people don't believe in probiotic. I don't care if it's just makes me feel happy. It just makes me feel happy. It gives me what I need to get going for the rest of the day. So there's a whole bunch of things that I do. Beta-alanine is one of them. I'll take a coffee, take a bit of beta-alanine in it. So I do certain things that sort of helps me get through the day. But the secret is I compartmentalize my day. I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I used to be waking up at 5:30. Now I wake up at 6 in the morning. And I sort of work on the first 3 hours of the day. And what do I need to get through those first 3 hours of the day? And then I look at the next 3 hours of the day. And my supplement plan is based on what I try to achieve in each parts of that day. And it works for me. It might not be the same for someone else, but
there's a fair bit of technology in there, and I love the way that you are actually using the subject matter experts. People obviously go get their bloods done as well, and they can understand exactly if they're deficient in any areas. My view on that changed a little bit earlier on, and I found that some of the people that I've worked with, the complexity stops them. And to me, it's getting back to the basics. So my diet's summed up as lean and clean, and you're just spending most of the time running around the outside aisles in the supermarket, or if you go into the organic markets, idealistically, and just keeping it fairly simple and just limiting sugar, limiting preservatives, and obviously limiting alcohol as well, just to keep it simple, stupid, so to speak. So people aren't getting... Because I think that, like you pointed out with nutrition, there's so much information out there and influence coming out, and not necessarily that's going to work for you. But I think just getting back to the bare basics, and then you can build on that.
Magnus, I totally agree with you. I think that's the secret, keeping it simple, right? Like it's the simple things. Are you drinking enough water? That's one of the biggest things. If you just talk to the average person and ask them, are you having enough fiber in your diet? Are you drinking enough water through the day? You'd find majority of the people don't. And it's astounding to me. You have one life, as far as I know. Like, by the way, you introduced me as an atheist. I grew up as a Buddhist. So, if it's anything to do with my heritage, I've got many more lives to live rather than this one life. But I'm a huge believer of we have one life to live. And that's what we know. Right? There could be a lot of other truths to my truth, but as far as you and I know, there's one life to live, and that's about 60 to 80 years.
We agree with that.
Well, there you go. So why not do everything you can to ensure that the 80 years that you're gonna live on this planet is gonna be a healthy one?
Absolutely. That I'm all about. Being proactive and prevention, that's something that I think is dramatically missing within the medical fraternity. Unfortunately, you go in, you've got a problem, they treat the symptoms, they don't treat the cause. And getting back to some of those basics, and like you pointed out, that's where the health span and the lifespan comes into account. So you're wanting to not only live a long life, but you don't want to be living that end of life in a wheelchair and not being able to move. We're very good, I think, as a society on lengthening your lifespan, but not necessarily lengthening your health span. And I think doing some of these small things, I've looked at it in the past, similar to the way you look at an investment, that you're just investing in yourself. So if you're putting money away week in and week out, like people do, for example, with their superannuation, that's what you should be doing with your health, doing those small things every day.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to sort of sometimes comprehend the how people think about this, but
they don't.
Yeah, but I've always sometimes got to step back and see there's so many different variables. Sometimes people are genetically challenged where they can't get to that point that you and I take for granted. There are external influences. There are addictions that are pushed upon people. the challenges of modern society. So you have to be realistic in the sense how you approach these things. But fundamentally, if you can do those simple things, like I said, like you can control when you go to sleep most of the time, right? You can control what you eat or what you put in your mouth. It doesn't need to be like, you don't have to, have to live a extravagant life. You can just be healthy, eating the nutrients that you need by just being simple. So those simple things, you get water, as far as we know, right? For now, water is free, right? So
that's actually the very first thing when I wake up in the morning. I squeeze half a lemon into a glass of water, and I'll have 2 glasses of water as the very first thing. I've heard from a lot of people that you're dehydrating a little bit throughout the course of your sleep, and then your body's obviously made up with a lot of water. So
yeah, the dehydration level is very different for everyone, right? So and it is always true for everyone. When you wake up, you're going to be dehydrated. So drinking water is very important. That's, again, a simple thing that people don't do, right? It's why do you just reach out for a coffee the first thing in the morning before you even drink water? That research is debatable. There's research now saying that doesn't make any difference, but it's as a habit. To forget about the health benefits or whatever the research tells you, but as a habit, drinking water doesn't hurt you. So why don't you just wake up in the morning and just have a glass of water? It's simple to do.
Can't hurt you.
That's it. I do a lot of other things when I wake up beyond the water part, because I know I'm going to get dehydrated even more, and I have some bad habits at night. So I said, sometimes when I can't sleep, I try everything I can do to manage to make sure that I get 8 hours sleep. There are a few things in my life that are non-negotiables. Avoiding dickheads is one of them. Number 2 is making sure you get 8 hours sleep.
8 hours sleep for me, that comes to be number 1, and followed by the no dickhead policy. So that's good.
The other way around for me, because no dickhead policy affects your mental health, and then it avoids from getting a good night's sleep. So sleep is paramount. So I've got into this bad habit, and this came from having a couple of really tough training sessions. When you do a huge lactic session, the symptoms you get is the same as you have a cold. So when I couldn't go to sleep and you're feeling like that, I actually trialed, again, do not recommend this to anyone, taking a couple of nighttime cold and flu tablets, right?
Ones that make you drowsy.
Yeah, it's 2 milligrams. It's not a lot in there. Just knocked me out. So whenever I can't sleep now, I just take one of those tablets, and it works for me. But I know as a side effect of that, it does make you a bit more dehydrated than normal, so you have to drink a bit more water when you wake up. But it works for me. It gives me my 8 hours sleep. All the research I've done so far, is saying me it's not that bad. Every now and then taking a nighttime cold and flu tablet. If that's the worst thing you do, that's okay, as long as you do everything else. And that's what I always say.
Let's talk about identity. Now, as you know, a couple of months ago, I decided to do this breakfast series that I coined Beyond the Title, that has been a renowned success. And in that, we ask not what you do, but who you are. So getting an understanding. And a lot of people associate who they are with what they do. What are your thoughts around that?
Mate, I got to give you credit. That was a great concept. And the first time I turned up to that breakfast, I struggled, because the first thing you do is identify yourself with what you make your living with, right? You said, I am so-and-so. And the first thing someone asks you, what do you do? And that's common practice. And it wasn't just me. Everyone in the room had to stop themselves and think for a second.
Just to elaborate on that, that's the one thing. That's why it's called Beyond the Title. So you're forbidden to talk about your title and what you do for a living. And like you pointed out, every networking event that you go to, or you go to a nice corporate lunch, it's the same thing. I'm Magnus. What do you do? Yeah.
So I think identity is, it's important. It's very prevalent when you're trying to achieve something, but at the same time, it could have a negative effect on it as well. You see this a lot in sports. The first guest we had in our mastering podcast, Riley Day, I think she talked about how difficult it was, when she didn't make that Olympic team because her identity was being an Australian athlete. And that's the same for a lot of people. They build their identity around a certain thing, and they can't see themselves beyond that. I think it's important, but it's also important not to get caught up in your identity that you build for yourself. You have to be able to redefine yourself and internally be happy with who you are.
Because I think your identity, when I look at this broadly, I think like I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a hockey player. There's things that I do, and not that I'm a full-on masters athlete. I think I behave very much like an athlete as far as my training regime and my nutrition is concerned.
Yeah.
When somebody asks you, what's your purpose, what can you tell them?
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because that was the thing. It's like, okay, well, if you take your identity away, don't say what you do, then, everything I do is something I'm passionate about. So if I take all of them out, then what is my purpose? And I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's actually I haven't stopped thinking about it since we did that breakfast. It's like, when I go to the next breakfast, what do I say? Because it's just like, if you take every element of that, and again, I think it's a result of capitalism, because we try to build all of these identities around how we best capitalize our wealth.
Well, that's what society looks upon as success, isn't it?
I think, yeah, you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head there. And then we sort of build our identity around that, and then we sort of, go and sell ourselves. We're all salespeople. That's what we do. We're taught to sell ourselves from day one. What do you do when you get out of university? If you go to university or out of school, like you have to go and sell yourself.
But sometimes too, and I know we've talked about this at the breakfast, just how sometimes adversity and events that have happened throughout the course of your life has helped shaped who you are today. And I remember at the last one when I shared the story of arriving over in Australia as a 5-year-old and not being able to speak a word of English, getting thrown into school in the middle of the year, and mum coming to pick me up, and I'm bawling my eyes out saying that no one understands me. The teacher was crying, saying that I can't understand him. Me kicking and screaming every morning, not wanting to go to school, not wanting to deal with that, and mum just saying, like, you've just got to go. You've just got to turn up, and you've got to turn up. It's going to get better. It's going to get easier. And I think that one event has certainly helped shape the type of person I am today, as far as that determination and that persistence, and just keep turning up until you just keep trying and trying until it makes it work. Have you got a short story that you could share with the audience on something that's helped define who you are today?
And I've got heaps. Where do we start? So I was born with a hole in the heart. So my parents had a choice of whether they operate on me or take the chance of it organically sort of closing and turning into a murmur. And then I can't even imagine what that decision would have been like for my parents, because one meant that I have to live in a certain lifestyle for the rest of my life. The other one is taking a huge chance, but I get to live a normal life, right? My parents did what they thought was the best choice for me, which is giving me an opportunity to live a normal life. And for most part of my life, I was told that I could drop dead if I run fast, or, I said, no, I'm going to do 400. I said, well, that's one of the most dangerous things you can do. Being diagnosed with a hole in the heart, and, then I had a murmur, which it turned into a murmur. It all worked out fine for me, a murmur, and now I'm healthy and no cardiovascular issues. I'm doing 400-meter hurdles, arguably one of the hardest sports, and I've done it most of my life. For me, knowing that I was able to get through that and sort of get to where I am, that sort of defined my life a little bit. But saying all of that, it is always difficult when you're facing adversity. Like, I said at the start, my motivation in life as an athlete was to go to the Olympics. And I had an injury that practically made that impossible. And I was psychologically not mature enough to deal with it, didn't have the right coach. All of these are excuses, but I wasn't mature enough to deal with those excuses. So same as you, I came to Australia in my early 20s. It's a huge adjustment from coming from Sri Lanka, third world country, into Australia where, there's so many challenges in the late 90s, Australia growing up. You think it's hard now? Go back to the 90s and see how hard it was for someone that looks like me to sort of try to make their way in a society. So, it's one of those things. I think you've got to evolve, and it's never going to get easy. Life is never easy. There's always going to be challenges.
So talking about evolving, when you look back now and you're just reflecting when you first moved to Australia, now that you're turning 50 next year, what matters most to you now that didn't matter to you when you were younger?
I think, if I'm being selfish and honest, health, right? For me, making sure that I'm healthy with it, psychologically or physically, it's just being healthy for the rest of my life. For me, what I do as a track and field athlete is not about winning, not about performing. It's actually about being healthy.
Just on that, so when I look at health as internal and fitness is external. What's your view on that? Because that's why I think it's health and fitness is what's important for me having both, because I want to be, there's people I think can be very fit and can look very fit, but then they don't behave very well from a lifestyle and nutrition perspective. So they might not be healthy on the inside, and then that can be vice versa. That somebody that's very healthy, but they're not very fit. Your view on that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm envious of those people who can be healthy and fit at the same time and not care about anything.
I don't think that's possible. When you're
there are genetically gifted people who are...
Very few people, I think, genetically gifted when you're younger, but as you get older, that becomes more and more difficult. And I've got the ultimate respect. There are some genetics
that will prove you wrong, man. There's research being done where people could smoke for the rest of their lives and has no adverse effect on them. And there's, biology is mind-boggling, right? Like it's.
I have heard about some of those people, and I remember having a friend, and he's like granddad. He smoked, and he lived until he was 95.
Yeah.
So it goes against everything that we're hearing today.
I know, and that's one of the other reasons I said when you talk about nutrition, it's very individual. It's very much your genetics and your microbiome and everything else that sort of is an individual sort of a thumbprint that belongs to you. So you have to take control of it yourself and make sure, I could tell you to drink 2 liters a day, but I don't know how your body absorbs, the H2O in that water, and how does protein react in your body. I can't tell you how red meat is going to interact with your body and how much protein that you need. So all of these things that's one thing I can tell people is take responsibility for your own nutrition and make sure that you're treating that body with the same respect.
Bit of trial and error.
Correct, yeah. Respect your body. And that's the biggest thing is just, you have one body, just respect it. Don't listen to every Tom, Dick and Harry. The current society is designed to create conflict, right? Because it creates more engagement. Unfortunately, this world that we're living in is driven by conflict. And that's one of the reasons why some of the things that we're seeing, and you and I can't believe that it's happening, like an individual like Donald Trump becoming the president of the free world, is something that you and I would not have predicted growing up. But it's happened. We love conflict and it creates engagement, but it also taps into your insecurities, and that is become the norm for the influencer model. The algorithms are designed to tap into your insecurities, and it'll talk to your insecurities so well and tell you to do all these things that most of the time most of the times you don't need, right?
But the opposite of conflict is peace. So we all want peace. What gives you peace?
What gives me peace is mind. It's understanding my own cognitive abilities and making sure that my community that I've got around me are people that I can grow old with, right? For me, it's about community. For everything for me, I think I grew up in that environment where the community sort of built your personality. And I sort of going around, I think that's my answer to how I identify myself is around my community. And I've always tried to build communities, even with our, how we build this the other podcast that you and I are working on called the Mastering Podcast. It's about building a community.
100%. Service. Is that something that you give any consideration to as far as legacy is concerned?
Service.
Yeah, being of service.
Being of service.
Yeah.
I think, you have to give back to community. Again, if you believe in community, then you have to believe in giving back to that community. Yeah. It's not a choice. I believe it in a little bit more than you do without talking about socialism. Magnus, you and I think we'll get cancelled if we go down that path. But again, I'm one of those people. I'd said to you off camera before, when I was in my early 20s, I wanted to work as hard as I could and earn as much money as I could, and I didn't want to share it with anyone. But now I'm thinking, I think we need to learn to share a little bit more. We have to share our wealth. We have to give back a bit more than we are giving.
I just had some thought come into my head then that there's that saying that don't give a man a fish, but teach a man how to fish. And I think that's something that I've had a real growing passion for recently, is being able to pass on some of that knowledge and some of that experience that I've had throughout the course of my life. And that is serving that next generation, I guess, in some of the... And
it's not that easy, mate, these days. It was easier in the old days. These are old sayings and things that we used to say in a different world, right? Yeah.
Well, I've been accused of that a lot recently, and I think at 57, there's definitely, like back in the good old days, I've found myself going there.
I know. You can teach someone to fish, but it costs so much money to buy the gear and everything else to go and do it. So it is not that easy. Like sometimes you do need to give people a bit of a helping hand.
They do, but in saying that, I think that it's still not just as a handout, but it's giving people also, I think, opportunity is a huge thing, because I think coming back to that whole community piece, I could not agree more with you. And you go back into the tribal and back into the ancestry, that's what was important back then, that you needed to be part of that community. And if you were not part of that community, you did not survive.
Yeah, agree. And that's something that... again, I'm going to go back to capitalism again. If you ever want to get a good explanation of capitalism, this book is celebrated and criticized at the same time. Probably the number one book I recommend to anyone to read. It's called *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari. It's his interpretation of the human history. Chapter 16 is about capitalism. It shows you a few different models of how capitalism came to be. I think one of the things that capitalism has done is promote individuality, which is the opposite of that community. So for capitalism to work, individuality has to be prevalent, right? Very controversial sort of topic, but that is the truth. It's like beauty is within. You take control for yourself. All of these things, it's really easy to market, so you can keep improving yourself at the expense of community. And that's where the problem is. I think you're taken away more and more away from community and relied upon by other things. Whether it's government or whether it's corporations, you're relying on a lot of other things when your community can serve most of these things.
I've got a bunch of other stuff written here, Don, but, mate, we are running out of time, and we're going to have to, mate, if you wouldn't mind, I think we get you back on the show and continue this discussion, but let's just rip into a a few of these quick fire questions, mate.
Yeah,
You ready?
man. Before that, I want to say there's one thing that I believe in, and I would recommend honey. It's one of those
What
things.
type of honey? I know you're very specific on this.
Yeah, I believe in high MGO, Manuka honey. It's pronounced Manuka, not Manuka. My wife would say I'm just being bougie and wasting money for no reason. But I think there's heaps of evidence that's coming out now showing how good honey can benefit your health, regardless of everything I said. You can be as individual as you want, but there's so much. If you want to get a really good sort of information on honey, the latest episode with Dr. Claire Collins that our favorite scientist did, it's called Shirtloads of Science podcast. She just breaks it down so well in this episode. I can't do justice by trying to explain what honey does, and she does. She's I think in the top 1% of researchers in dietetics. She's a foremost authority, and she talks about honey with such passion in this episode. And this is what I've been preaching for 10 years. I actually got my wife to sit down and listen to that episode so I can prove to her everything that I've been saying is true. So, honey.
Appreciate your insight, mate. Let's do it. If you could only keep one of these, faith, family, health, or purpose, which would it be?
Family.
What scares you more, failure or regret?
Regret.
What's one habit that you do every day that's changed your life?
8 hours sleep.
If you could have dinner with one person, living or dead, who would that be?
Michael Jordan.
What's one thing society gets completely wrong about success?
That it's easy.
Do you think people are born disciplined or become disciplined?
I think people become disciplined. I don't think it's something that is inherent in people. There's so many times in your life that you could lose that discipline. So you have to keep reteaching yourself how to be disciplined, because every challenge, every adversity resets.
What matters more for you, happiness or meaning?
Meaning. Happiness is a drug, by the way. That's a strong belief in that. We have to do an episode on that.
If you only had 5 years left to live, what would you change first?
If I had 5 years left to live, spend more time with my community.
What's one question you wish more people would ask themselves?
What's my purpose?
When was the last time you completely changed your mind on something important?
This is controversial. Eat sugar.
How would you like to be remembered when you're gone?
That's a tough one, because you know what that does?
What's that do?
Makes you think about your mortality.
Yes, it does. We'll skip that one. Last question, mate. What's one thing that you admire about me, and what's one thing you think I'm completely wrong about?
One God, no, I'm kidding. Man, I admire your discipline. You're very disciplined and very driven, right? I think there's something that we didn't talk about, which is education. This is something that you and I have very differing views on. You're one of those few people that hasn't had that opportunity to go and educate yourself and have that academic background and still make a success of yourself. So I think I love your tenacity. I love your motivation. There's so much that is infectious about you, and you're very positive person as well. Every time I've met you, there's no negativity. It's been very, very positive. One of my pet hates is the Dunning-Kruger effect, if you haven't heard about that, where people, best way to explain it is, imagine someone playing the flight simulator one day and saying that they could fly a plane. that's a perfect example of it. And someone who's gone through the whole process of learning how to fly, you would know the complexity of it. But then someone tells you, oh yeah, I can fly a plane because I just drove a flight simulator. So you're one of those people that's the opposite of that, which probably, you probably can do a lot more than you say you can.
Mate, thank you. And I'll just answer that question as well, mate, because I'm very much the same. I see the tenacity and the persistence that you've shown. Again, you're a very, very positive person, very motivated person, and you're always full of energy. Every time we catch up, it's infectious as well, your energy. And you got your great smile, and I know that you've had it commented before, mate, like you got really nice skin. And and the only thing you got wrong,
look at this.
And the only thing you got wrong, mate, is that you're an atheist.
I told you I'm not an atheist. I probably believe in 100 more things than you do. So that's and on that too, I think we should talk about the belief systems. Like I
100%
I don't
agree.
not believe there is something more powerful than us. If you don't believe that, then you're an idiot. Like you can't believe in science without believing in something that's
greater
bigger
than us. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Call it energy, call it God, whatever you want, right? I worship mathematics. I worship science. So I'm worshipping something that's different to you.
So there we go. To be continued. Thanks very much, Don.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks for tuning in to the M26 Fit podcast. If something landed with you today, share it with a mate, hit subscribe, and keep showing up. One day at a time, one rep at a time. Stay aligned, spirit, mind, body.